Vera here.
Hi, Christina.
Souls.
Enlightenment.
There you go.
And today, Vera and I, because recently we've been doing some tools for protection videos.
Right.
So today we kind of wanted to talk about what we need to protect ourselves from.
Exactly. And we were going to talk about one of my clients had some questions about, how we started, how we evolved, how the light and the dark became.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that too, but we're probably, don't you think, should put it into like 3 different videos or something?
Yeah.
It's a lot of information.
It is. And it's really, really interesting because we just had a session with Vera, with Angus through Vera, to talk about some of this really interesting information. And when you had said light and dark, what she's talking about, what Vera's talking about, is light entities versus dark entities. And of course it has nothing to do with
dark skin.
Yeah, the color of our skin, right?
I think it has to do with the way, when you're in the light, you feel safe and you're able to see everything. And when you're in the dark, it's kind of scary because you don't know what's out there. Yeah. So I think that's where they got the light and the dark, not because you're white or you're
right
dark.
Or whatever. Yeah. And I also think of like the light of the Holy Spirit of God, right? And so it's associated with the goodness, and then the dark side, kind of like it reminds me of Star Wars, you know. So light versus dark. So it has to do with creation, and we, like Vera said, we wanted to explore that topic further with Angus because we know information previously, but we went in depth on the subject. Yeah. So it all starts with creation, and we were in
the Godhead.
We had a choice of how we wanted to be, whether we wanted to be a light entity or a dark entity.
Or gray.
And the gray, we'll get to the gray in a minute. Yeah. But we had a choice, and the choice came when God created. He showed us what He created for us, which is the opportunity, like Angus was saying through Vera, to come into life, to experience, to create these planets that we could incarnate into.
Have a chart.
With the chart. And the chart, of course, is so that we can
experience for Him. Yeah,
and have lessons and evolve and everything like that. So He showed us this, and then He asked us to wait. So He told us, He wanted us to wait, and that's
God.
God wanted us to wait before we left to start incarnating and doing that. And that's kind of when the free will choice of all of us became a reality, and that's when we chose to be light or dark. And one of the things that I thought, it was really interesting that Angus was saying was that what made them leave, because the dark entities, they wanted to leave, right? They didn't want to wait. So that was kind of like they wanted to be outside of the rules and kind of what they could get for themselves.
Well, I think it would be really uncomfortable too, because if you're in a room with a bunch of people that are not like-minded, it tends to be a little like uncomfortable. If you have somebody that's going by the rules and you have somebody that's rowdy and wants to party or whatever, it's like it kind of, you taint each other's, situation. And they were still in with us, right?
Right.
So that's where, I told you about that, how it felt being with them in the Godhead. Remember when we went for a walk?
Yeah, it was really cool because you were saying that it was almost like there was a rumbling with those entities, like discontentment. But more than that, I guess. Yeah,
it's kind of like they didn't want to go with the flow. And like I told you, it was like we were all going around in harmony, within the Godhead and mingling with each other and everything. And they were just kind of like, boom, boom, like, I want to go that way. It was kind of like disruption.
That's really interesting, too, because when you just did that, it reminded me of, dark-hearted entities. They inflict harm in life on others with the intent to do it. And they come from the standpoint of like, if you're in my way, so you made me hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. They
You
always
know?
blame the other person.
Yeah, so it's like
It's never their fault.
Yeah, and so one of the parts of the question that your client had was what made them choose that, but it was something that was like a flaw.
A flaw within, yeah.
So it was like a flaw that they had in their nature that they wanted to. They didn't want to follow any rules of, or they didn't want to grow because they already thought that they were
better than.
And you know what blows my mind? They even thought that they're better than
God.
Yeah. They thought that they could do greater things than what God has or can do. Mm-hmm. That's just like crazy to me.
I know.
But they do.
That's what they do, and that's their job. Their job is to create havoc, right?
Right. You know,
it still makes me wonder why. But I guess if we would come down and everything was, roses and sunshine, then we wouldn't evolve.
Come into life, you mean, yeah. And what's fascinating about that is that one of the things that I thought was pretty profound that Angus said to Vera during our session was that even it's like their job, but even more so, what you were saying is that it's their calling.
Yeah.
It's their calling to wreak havoc, to try to diminish our light, to create suffering and pain.
It's an enjoyment.
They enjoy it. Because
that's what heaven.
This is their heaven.
Earth is their heaven.
So, Earth and our lives here, because, we can find joy, but it doesn't mean that it's our heaven. Our heaven is when we go home to the other side because it's a perfect environment. Mm-hmm. This is actually like a hell to us. It doesn't get worse. I mean, if you look around in the world today with what happens to, innocent people and children and disease and all those bad things, that's like the hell that, that we can experience through. But for them, they enjoy it because they have control over other people's situations, and
or they want to think that.
They want to think that. They want to have that power because they want to be like God. Yeah.
And maybe for a little minute they would have control. Like, say, for instance, people that abuse anybody or animals or whatever, they have that power at that moment. But eventually that person is going to leave, hopefully, before they get killed or whatever. But even if they do get killed, it's over.
So do you mean their soul leaving their body? Yeah. And that's the thing. That's like a whole nother topic.
I know.
But you're right. That's what they want is it makes them feel powerful, and it's their ego. That's the flaw in their character more than anything that you were talking about. Is their ego is what they feel that they are better than, and they have more power, and that type of thing.
Yeah, the ego is their mantra.
Yeah. One of the things that Vera and I were talking about right before this video too that we wanted to also tell you is not to worry. It's natural for us to have human feelings of anger. Doesn't mean everybody's a dark-hearted entity.
Doesn't mean that if you don't like someone, they're dark.
Right.
That you may not like this person, but does not mean they're dark.
It's not about the actions. I mean, of course, actions,
it's not about the person, really. It's about the action.
It's about the intent.
Yeah, the intent.
That's what, it's like when somebody intends to hurt. Sometimes we don't mean to hurt, and we do.
It's just like that plant that I...
Yeah. and sometimes it's out of pain that we lash out. Doesn't mean it's an excuse or whatever, but it's always different. It's always different.
We always feel bad.
Yes.
Where dark entities do not feel bad.
Exactly. They don't have that type of, because they don't audit themselves, and that type of thing. Exactly. Should we do a part 2, or should we just keep going?
Well, let's do a part 2.
Okay.
What do you guys think? They said yes.
So. Okay. All right. We'll see you next Saturday, and we'll talk more in depth about this fascinating subject.
And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.